DLP, data loss prevention. So what is data loss prevention and how can you do it? Because it's a thing, but it's also an idea. So data loss prevention is just what it sounds like. It's trying to prevent the loss of your data. Now, most organizations don't realize, but data loss happens quite frequently. Data can be sent to a person that they shouldn't have gotten it. The file could have been shared and then the link not expired. Maybe a file was in a SharePoint location that someone had access to that they shouldn't have. These can all lead to data leakage, including things like accidental data leakage, putting things on a thumb drive and forgetting about it, adding it to your personal computer and leaving it there, downloading a file directly to your phone and not having it in OneDrive or syncing, but actually on the phone. These are all ways that we can have data exfiltration. Now, data exfiltration is likely going to happen. We realize this, and that's kind of why our new security model is an assume breach zero trust model. And what is assume breach? It means that we're just always assume that we're going to be breached, assume that data is going to be leaked, that things are just going to happen. And we have to live by this, but also say, well, we can't just write it off. Data loss is a very important thing that we need to protect against. And we're living in a distributed world where people work from everywhere every single day. How can I prevent this from happening? We utilize things like data labels that really help, as well as you stop things like syncing on SharePoint, allow people to have mobile access policies pushed to their phones. These policies, these mobile application policies, can restrict things like copy and paste, sharing files outside of an application, and many other conditions like no screenshotting. And they really can prevent some of the more intentional data leakage. But really, the unintentional is, like I said before, someone adds a file and forgets about it. And that's where labeling really comes into place. Internally at FSI, we use two major types of labels, what we consider a public label and an internal private label. Our public label has multiple settings, and basically that label is put into place so that if we're going to share a document or anything like that, that we know it's from FSI and we can rescind sharing or set other permissions on it. And then we have other policies that we place on our public label, such as encrypting the document, stopping forwarding from the document, or even watermarking that document. These are easily accessible from all major Microsoft productivity suite products. So OneDrive allows it, but really Word, PowerPoint, Excel, even SharePoint has it built in now. You can see it at the top of your document library where it says the default label that happens to a document. Now, if someone gets a document that's been labeled sensitive or that it contains PII, you still might want to send that to somebody, and they still might need to be able to access it if you have a contractor or something like that. So you can lock your policies down to specific email addresses or groups or people. And these policies can also hold things like the do not forward rules, but they can also be expired out. This also means that if that person tries to share a file and is successful, let's say that you took and you sent somebody a file that was labeled, and then they took and they put it on a thumb drive and put it in another computer. When that document is accessed, it will look and do a permissions check. If the person who does have permissions is logging in, it just goes through the standard login process and allows them to proceed. However, if that person does not have permissions, it blocks them from even opening the document. In this permission level, this encryption level, it follows the document. It doesn't matter if it's in SharePoint or OneDrive or your desktop or a thumb drive or your cloud PC, as we talked about a couple weeks ago. Your information is safe everywhere. Now, it's not perfect, and there are some caveats, which we can go into in depth later, but it is a great way to get started in protecting your documents no matter where they are, especially if you have a distributed workforce that's constantly interchanging documents. You can also do this for things like email. Going through and encrypting an email is something that most of us use a third-party application for, but you don't have to. This can be default built into Microsoft 365, and hopefully you're going to utilize the services that you're already paying for. And this is a service that's been around for a while. It's time tested and it's pervasive throughout the entire ecosystem. Matter of fact, if you heard us talk about it before, labels actually are even used within Copilot. If you generate a new document from a document, let's say that we have 5 Word documents and they're all labeled with different labels, and we create a new Word document from those 5 using Copilot, it will actually take and utilize the highest level, meaning the highest confidentiality level. So if a document is locked to the internal organization and the document is then shared out and somebody tries to utilize it, they won't be able to. That means that a new document that's been created by Copilot and tried to be shared out, that's not going to work either. So Copilot inherits the label from whatever the highest classification label on the document that you're using to generate a new document is from. This also goes for Excel or any other documents out there that you might be using. If you're utilizing Excel to generate something in Word utilizing Copilot, you're good to go. It's going to move around with you, and your documents are going to be secure wherever they are. Now, we highly recommend implementing this, and it is available with almost all Microsoft 365 licenses. There are some advanced features that you can add on, like auto labeling that goes through your entire environment and labels it based on identifiers like personal identifiable information, credit card information, and others. And those can be arranged and set up when you're designing your SharePoint, but they can also be put into place later down the road. You can do things in SharePoint libraries like enforce data labeling. And all of these features, like I said, for the most part, are already built in. I hope that you've learned a lot about how you can begin with data loss prevention and what it really means. And you continue to follow us and listen to us here on What's the Function. So thanks for your time. I'm John Firth. We'll see you next time.